We're all misfits.
All right, you ragtag bunch of misfits.
You're a scrappy little misfit, just like me.
Biggest bunch of misfits I ever set eyes on.
Good morning, Misfits. You are tuning into a special edition Misfit podcast. Misfit Affiliate Programming Phase 2 begins Monday, October 14th at teammisfit.com or the SugarWad Marketplace. We are going to go in depth today on what Phase 2 is all about, what we will be focusing on, how we think about coaching it, and honestly, in a lot of ways, this podcast is either very informational for the people that are already subscribed to our affiliate programming, or it is a bit of an audition on our end to tell you why we are qualified to do so and sort of how we think about coaching classes and communicating to our coaching staffs, etc. Before we get started, as always, live chat. Hunter, what you got going on?
76.
That's close to 72.
It's getting there. It's close. 72 would still be 2 over at none such, but yeah, had a pretty good weekend. Me and Alex were partners for the last like member tournament of the year last Saturday. We were playing from the blue tees, that's the equivalent of like the standard tees for anybody out there. But the course is like a little bit shorter, so good score. It's not a super long course, but aside from 3 holes that I absolutely fucking buried my head in the sand for, was on pace for even better than that. So good. Didn't think I would get quite that close to 75 this year, but maybe I'll sneak one in before the end of the season.
And is it still like all 3 or 4 phases of your game, or are you getting like specifically better at one of them?
Putting's improving a bit. It's still like, I think it's like CrossFit. It's like the day that your conditioning feels good, your lifts feel like absolute dog shit. The day you feel the strongest man in history, you can't breathe unless it's out of your mouth like a fucking jabroni. So everything. It's a matter of identifying which thing is not cooperating and minimizing the damage that it does to my overall round. And then there are some days where nothing can help me, and I will probably shoot 100. So
I mean, it sounds like a lot like CrossFit. Nothing could help me last week for that Tota Bar double under workout.
That was such a weird workout. I was like, I'm glad we had Nicole hopped in there and had her scores, her RX affiliate athlete
so
scores.
I actually wanted to talk about that, because that is, and I think I have one of the things that's really helpful in our affiliate programming meetings is you guys are very practical about what is possible within a class, whether it's logistics or equipment or scores or this, because I'm just not used to programming something on the competitive side where the range would be that large. Which is why we have the scaling options on something like our hatchet program.
Your expected range wouldn't be pretty large. That doesn't mean the people executing them are not.
Exactly, yes. So my intention, which I think is too idealistic, was if you don't think this person can get it done in 12 minutes, they should be doing 2 sets max on toes to bar, or they should be doing single unders or less double unders or less weight on the dumbbell, whatever it is. Yeah. But like, being a remote coach to 19 separate people, like there'd be a lot of coaches out there that'd be like, fucking thanks. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I think that the workout still was what I thought it was going to be, but I think it probably needed to be scaled for way too many people to have that be the score range. I would want everyone to be done that workout in less than 15 minutes for sure.
I think 15 is probably reasonable to ask for. The problem is so for people listening, it involved double unders, toes to bar, and single dumbbell overhead walking lunge. All 3 of those movements are like, there's no place to hide, in the sense that if you're not doing anything, you're not getting closer to the finish line. Like you can plug away with some sad meters on a bike, but like if double unders are not occurring, like the clock is still ticking and you are 0 reps closer to finishing the workout. And I just think like for affiliate athletes, those 3 movements and the number of round, those cardio stimulus workouts tend to be the more difficult for athletes to wrap their head around as far as execution goes. But yeah, I think there's just so much variance in the capabilities of affiliate athletes in those 3 movements. So I think 15 minutes was definitely, I think we were on the right track, but we can go into it more later. But like an athlete working out for 17 minutes in that workout isn't, it's like, no, maybe it wasn't ideal, but I'm not going to apologize. Like they got 17 minutes of fitness and hopefully we learned something about how to scale, or they just got fitter.
Yeah, and the funny thing is when you go look at the whiteboard out there, almost everyone who did that workout RX that didn't fall into the right time domain was a fucking meathead. And we're really hard to scale for, right? Like nothing in a workout like that is inappropriate for me other than the cardiovascular demand, which is incredibly challenging to scale for, right?
Sure.
Like you're not going to turn it into an AMRAP for someone like that. Are you going to tell me I need you to take 20 seconds rest between each move? You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
How do you deal with that? Because individually those movements are not challenging because you can use your fast twitch to, you know, get the 50-pound dumbbell up over your head fairly easily. You know, toes to bar aren't challenging when you're fresh. Double unders, you know, typically someone who's a little bit more on the athletic side, but it's like I saw some of my brethren in the 16-minute range, and it's like, how do you scale for someone like that? That might be a good podcast topic.
Yeah, no, I mean it's like
it's an interesting.
It is, and it's hard to because as a coach, like I know. Like the argument is like, listen, I know none of these movements in a vacuum are particularly difficult, or like the movements themselves, nor the volume at which we're asking you to do them. But you have to understand something at some point, like the fact that you don't have to stop moving, your energy systems will catch up with you. Your breathing will become the limiting factor. And all of a sudden 9 toes to bar, which is like you thought you could do in your sleep, is now like, it's not that I can't do toes to bar, it's that my fitness level isn't high enough to allow me to do toes to bar with my heart in my throat. And it's difficult to talk athletes through the more subjective, like, hey, there's going to be a line at which this is no longer as easy as it looks on paper. And that's why I'm going to scale you when athletes are like, no, like,
right.
Let the boys play, ref. Like, come on.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you got for live chat? We skipped that.
Well, it's actually kind of a segue. My live chat is I got my ass handed to me by our affiliate programming in kind of the best way last week. And it was funny because I wrote the workouts last week, so some of the feedback that I was getting from people was like, this was terrible and this was awesome. I kind of felt the same way. I did not have it on sprint day. That just gobbled me up. That 30 cal bike ended my day. Yeah. And then having to go, like, there were 4 of us out there doing it, and at first everyone was like, oh, it's, you know, I gotta, you know, go do X, Y, and Z. I got to do another workout, which didn't happen. I was definitely not the one saying that. But it was like, yeah, we're going to rest you, whatever, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. And then I think we rested 6 minutes and 30 seconds in the last round. Yeah. Because it was like, everyone was like, I got to go grab my monitor's fucked up. I got to go get a bike. Just give me, you're just like
just
praying
give me 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah. You're just praying that somehow that extra 10, 20, 30, and it didn't matter at all.
Yeah. Not only does it not matter, but it actually might have made it worse. Like,
yeah. Yeah. That was
one of the rare occasions where after biking, my ass cheeks were on fire. No smart ass comments here, listeners, but my glutes were fucking cooking. I presume because of
the handles all the way. Do you move them all the way up to get like out over the pedals?
No, I probably could, but I do get out over it. I assume that I was basically pushing like down and backward, which is more like glute versus like straight down, which I guess would be more quad.
Your seat
And-
could potentially be too high too if you have to point your toe too much
Yeah.
and pull back.
I was
that
standing
can be a
for
problem.
most of the
Gotcha.
the 30 calories.
Gotcha.
The
So that doesn't
15
matter.
calories after the row was just sad for a different reason. But
Yeah, no, I'm
yeah.
well
no,
aware.
yeah, that was definitely a
well
muscular. I mean, my lungs I was breathing hard for sure, but the fucking hydrogen build ion disparity. It's not lactic acid, ladies and gentlemen. It's pH imbalance.
One thing that we should try to do is get Mark on here for a coach's podcast episode where we talk about
That twat's gonna hear this and never let us live that fucking down.
the importance of that style of training, because he likes a pump up speech. You know, he's coaching at either 5 a.m. or 6:15. He likes to bring the heat with like, this is why this is going to work, or this is why this is going to change you physically or mentally. And the Sendy stuff is weird from like an energy system standpoint and what happens to your body. And he was kind of asking us for a little bit of help with that speech in the coaches text group. And it was like, I have an answer, but it's like 19 minutes long. And he was texting at like 8 p.m. And I was like, no one wants to read 7 pages from me right now about why this is what it should be. But I think that would be a cool episode for coaches because, again, like we probably ask that of people once a month, maybe somewhere in that range.
Yeah, about that. Maybe
yeah.
once every 3 weeks. Well,
and you should be able to explain the, wanting your energy systems to look like a big fat pyramid, and your zone 2 super wide at the bottom, and then how high can you get your power output, all of that jazz. But I think that would be a cool episode to do. So anyways, I am currently still doing I want to shoulder press 225, so 2.5 to 3 days a week I'm doing
you've been looking
that.
thick, respectfully.
Dude, the days that I do it, like my fucking, like my shoulders and my traps just explode.
Yeah.
Like, hell yeah, let's fucking go.
Yeah.
And I am sort of paying attention to my body weight. I'm not gonna go over. I'm not gonna like try to like weigh 205 unless I have to, unless it's like a mass moves mass thing. Like that would suck. I would have to try. I would have to eat more than I would want to weigh 205.
Yeah.
I'd have to like literally.
What do you
eat
weigh now?
pizza.
195?
200.
200?
If I had to guess, 197, 198, something like that. I always stay between 195 and 200.
Yeah.
So I do that 3 days a week, and then I do I just short, medium, long. I'm like, I'm not allowed to write my own workouts. But I have the whole Misfit affiliate sheet, so I can go hunt for what I'm looking for, time domain wise. And I just try to go short, medium, and long, and try to mix up the movements that I'm doing. And man, last week was just gnarly. The one really weird anecdote was my IT band was really bothering me, and I was like doing flush days, and I was doing mobility, and I was like, digging into it, and it just kept getting worse, like super inflamed. After sprint day, gone, 100% gone. Like not even a twinge of. So something got knocked loose in that sprint day, which is really weird.
I use
really
sprints to help like my hip flexor like TFL issue that I was having. I was talking to Ryan, Kelly's PT, about it.
Yeah.
And he's like, and I was like, I don't know what it is, but like if I sprint, like obviously warm it up well, but when I sprint, like not only does it not hurt when I'm sprinting, but afterward it like everything feels like it should. Nothing's tight. Everything feels like squared back up almost. And he's like, it's like, yeah, there's something to be said about like just the right level of like muscular activation, turning on muscles that are supposed to be working, which turn off muscles that are maybe overactive or are tight when they shouldn't be. But yeah, that's
it's
such a
less
weird
steps
phenomenon.
with usually, if you played sports, significantly better form than your body's used to. So like if you go out and jog, you go do a zone 2 run, you do even like today's workout, you got your you're just not, your body's it's going to take on much more damage. And then when you go sprint, like if you watch, I call it the road runner. That's what you want a sprint to look like. You want someone's knee coming up and their heel at their butt, and it just looks like their feet are moving in circles in those positions. And you're like really firing all the musculature that it takes, especially if you're like practicing on the air runner or something like that. So I definitely notice that style of running is easier on my body from like a joint standpoint, but I've never had a mobility issue vanish based on sprinting. Is really weird. Very odd. Okay. So, this episode is going to drop within the last week that you can get signed up for Misfit training camp at CrossFit Raid, just outside of Philadelphia. Head to the link in bio in our Instagram, get signed up. That is Friday, October 11th in the evening through Sunday, October 13th in the afternoon. I wanted to bring this up at the beginning just because this might be even better for coaches than it is for athletes. This is just an opportunity to pick our brains, to see the way that we get people to warm up, to see the way that we herd cats, to see, a lot of the different ways that you could help your athletes move the needle, whether they are at the affiliate level or a competitor. So make sure you get signed up for that. And then quick overview, Hunter. We have a gap week between phase 1 and phase 2 for Misfit affiliate programming, and that is the affiliate games, a yearly tradition where we go in and sort of rewrite CrossFit Games workouts that can be done at the affiliate level so that we can sort of make that huge long connection between that spectrum. And that starts Monday, October 7th.
Yep. That is just, it's 7 days, basically one workout per day. There's no competitor extra this week. It's just that one pretty intense, CrossFit Games workout that's just been tweaked a little bit to be appropriate for affiliates. Some of them have not been tweaked at all. Track and field, for example, their 1 mile run and then the sandbag carry. Bless your heart. Obvious, aside from some of the logistical demands of the, sandbags and stuff like that, that workout has not been modified unless you're scaling it back for more deconditioned athletes. But we've basically just taken the workouts that we thought would be doable in a class setting, might be fun to challenge yourself and see how you might stack up, or just probably even more so just to get context for just how fit the fittest people on earth are. And just tends to be a fun week. And then we round it out on, I think this was probably in hindsight a bad decision, but I think it'll be all right. The Sunday workout is Chad. It's the engine workout for that, but that'll kind of serve as like the 7th day, so to speak. Might be tough rolling into a 5x3 deadlift on day 1 of phase 2, but you'll be all right.
Yeah, they'll be all right for sure. So phase 2, Monday, October 14th, you can get signed up at teammisfit.com or the Sugar Wad Marketplace. One thing that's really important here, when you go to download your program on teammisfit.com, you will be able to click the link to gain access to our Discord group. Make sure you get signed up for Discord. Make sure you go in there. I am in there. Hunter is in there. Kyle is in there. Sherb is in there. We're going in to talk to you about workouts. You can get clarification on what's going on. You can bring up issues that are going on at your affiliate, coaching questions, whatever it is. So make sure you use that as a resource. And then if you are a SugarWOD subscriber and you did not receive the email, just let us know. Reach out and we will make sure that you get in there. So the way that
I want to get one other thing, Drew. We mentioned SugarWOD. There's a few listeners, at least a few have been asking about it, but we are going to end up having Team Misfit affiliate programming in Push Press, in the Push Press platform. So that's going to take a little bit of time. I don't have an exact date on it, but for any of you, potential would-be subscribers, if you use the Push Press software for your gym, we are going to be getting our affiliate programming available through that platform. So just stay tuned for that.
I will also say, if we get enough sort of votes from affiliates for software that they use, where they would like us to be, then we will explore those options as well. So if your affiliate uses Beyond the Whiteboard, Wodify, things of that nature, and it would be a more seamless operation and you don't have to enter anything in anywhere, let us know in Discord and we'll sort of explore that and see if it's possible for us to do. So the way that we outline these podcasts is we let you know what these specific biases are. That starts to help you understand how maybe a week could be outlined within our programming. And we try to dig into some of the coaching aspects of the particular movements or the style of day, etc. And then last but not least, sort of round it out with the extras that you get from the programming. So the heavy lift that will be rotated between like dedicated lifting session, your 5x3s, your 6x2s, whatever it is. And then the alternate week, the lift actually shows up in a workout instead, is going to be the deadlift. I want to start with the heavy day because we are reintroducing something that's different than when we did it in the summer, the PAP. So if you want to explain what that PAP is, maybe a sample session of what it looks like, and then any coaching points.
Yeah, so PAP, or post-activation potentiation, is kind of the science that says let's do a compound barbell movement like a squat, or in this case a deadlift, a really heavy deadlift, and then after that set is complete, follow it up by something that is body weight and explosive in nature. It doesn't need to necessarily be body weight, but something that allows you to be very explosive. An example would be Monday, day one. It's after each set of 3 deadlifts, perform 3 seated box jumps for maximum explosiveness. The goal isn't necessarily to jump as high as possible or to jump onto the highest box as possible, but instead we've essentially fired up the nervous system and the musculature required for a really heavy deadlift, which is a whole shitload of musculature in, across when we're talking about your entire body. And then so those kind of fast twitch muscle fibers are primed. Now let's almost expose them by doing something fast and explosive. And the science behind it is, so the way that a PAP session would typically be programmed is like there's actually, let's say you back squat and then do a really short sprint afterward, but there would actually be a pretty long gap between the completion of that set of squats and when the athlete sprints. So if we're talking very, very traditional PAP, I would say this is a little bit more, we've adjusted this to accommodate a 60-minute CrossFit class, right? So at some point between your sets of 5, your 5 sets of 3 deadlifts, you perform those seated box jumps with the goal of maximum explosiveness. It's not meant to be a Metcon where we're doing 3 deadlifts and 3 box jumps as fast as possible. It's very much about motor recruitment, being explosive, making sure that we're taking advantage of the lifting that was just done by doing something very powerful.
Yeah, I mean, you get more explosive by performing explosive movements, and the buy-in that you need from athletes that are like, there are going to be people that come into the gym that are going to lift fairly heavy and jump at a moderate effort, and they're going to be totally happy with that. They're deadlifting, they're jumping, like we're talking bone density and all the good stuff that comes with this. But then there are going to be athletes who truly are like part of their identity is the fact that they're not explosive and they want to figure out how to do it. And you just need to get them to buy into the fact that the more often that they really try to be in terms of an effort standpoint, the more they can build linear progression into actually becoming explosive. So if you've got that person that's like, crushes all of the cardio workouts in the open and then gets super bummed when the heavy thruster comes out or whatever it is, let them know that this is one of those opportunities where, like, how many box jumps did you say, Hunter? So is it
3?
Essentially 5x3 as well?
Yep.
You've got 15 chances to be very explosive and then try to take that mentality back into the barbell. So it definitely works, and in a sort of unfair way, it works better for people who are explosive, but a lot of that's just because they know how to be and they're trying to be in that moment. So then basically you do that week 1, and then week 2, we've got deadlift in a workout. We want to go take the explosiveness that we're building, the strength that we're building, the movement patterns that we're building, and put them in an actual CrossFit workout.
Yeah, I think it's a, in week 1, again, that heavy day is the deadlift. The second week, you'll find the deadlift in a Metcon, and then there's a separate day that week that's going to be dedicated as a heavy day with a different lift. But when we're talking about putting the heavy lift that we're focusing on into a workout, kind of alternating between a traditional strength session and a more CrossFit focused sort of lift, I think it's just the idea that we don't want to just deadlift only in a heavy day environment, because that doesn't really achieve the GPP goal that we're after. That's a little bit more of what would you say is the step further than bias? It's the next word, like
Specializing.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. So we might be teetering the line there on specializing in the deadlift for a phase if we're only going to do it in a heavy day environment, no heavy breathing, whatever, for 7 straight weeks. You can make the argument that that's valuable as long as it's not every week of the year, but tend to find that, hey, we can go really have the lifting only days that the deadlift pops up in there. It's like 3s, 2s, and 1s. So it's very, very heavy. We want athletes to be comfortable doing a movement like a deadlift when their heart rates are up. One, it applies to things like the CrossFit Open, but to like life, just CrossFit, GPP, let's not specialize so far in one direction that we turn into power lifters for a phase. Let's make sure that we're getting strong on the days that are dedicated to it, and then let's see how that works out for us in a conditioning setting.
One of my current coaching conquests is getting more athletes to understand how to be set up and powerful and strong in the first rep of their deadlift versus let me get this thing from the floor to my hip by any means necessary, and then organize myself on the way down and end up getting, better as I go. At the affiliate level, this is so important because we deal with the fact that someone will sort of change direction, change the positioning of their spine at the L5, S1 to accomplish that. So they're in a flat back position, they, shoot their knees back and their butt up, and they end up pulling into tension while rounding, like a little bit of a rounded back. I think that might be a bit of a boogeyman that, like, if you maintain it, it's not the end of the world. There's a lot of people that have a beautiful rounded back deadlift. Yeah. It's more the spine, the consistent changing of the back position throughout the rep. Yeah. So I've been working on just some ideas of how to teach this, and you have to get creative when you're in a remote coaching setting. So it's like, okay, let's get a weight on the bar where you can do a perfect deadlift from the floor. And then we're going to essentially make our way down and halt, in a few inches off the ground. We're really going to think about what's happening within our body. How strong is our grip? What are we doing with our scaps to maintain that shoulder being back? What are the things that are creating that amazing position? And then, like, literally the slowest tempo that you can think of to take you from a few inches off the floor to the floor while maintaining that tension. And then it's like, okay, you still are at tension. Can you feel it? Yes. Let go of the bar, stand up, go back down, and see if you can recreate that. When you are able to, when you have that, this is one of those epiphany moments where you can go from like, I thought I wasn't a puller to like, I love deadlifting. And there's so many movements where this just isn't possible from like a genetic and anatomical standpoint. But the deadlift, there is just this magic like clicking moment for athletes when they learn what it takes to pull a heavy deadlift from the floor, without having that tension to be there. So I would just say something to think about from a coaching perspective is teaching those athletes to do that, because they become healthier. They are going to excel way more in the, as we get down into sets of 2, sets of 1, and then every single time you readdress the barbell in a Metcon, like there are Metcons that are in there where you need to do it more than once in a set in the phase, and like them having that skill I think is incredibly important. So just something that's been like top of mind for me recently to try and get across to people, because some people really leave a lot on the table with their 1 rep max deadlift and then that first rep of every set as they go through.
Yeah, for sure.
Like Hunter said, when it's in WOD that week, your athletes will still have a heavy day. It is the GPP rotation. That just means you're going to be squatting and power cleaning, and you're going to be doing all the different lifts that you can think of. But as we get closer and closer to the open, we make sure that there is a heavy-ish dose, whatever a step back from a bias would be. I don't have a word for that. Half bias on the Olympic lifts. So you're going to see, in an almost every other week type fashion, some form of Olympic lift in there, just to make sure that that stuff stays fresh, because it is more technical for your athletes, and it could be, if you don't use it, you lose it situation.
Yeah, we're going through a phase right now of front squat and squat clean as kind of the lifting bias for the phase. This coming phase, because of how demanding the deadlift can be, and of how technical and skill based the Olympic lifts are for a lot of athletes, like at the affiliate level especially, there's a pretty wide spread of the utility of Olympic lifting, right? So someone who's technically proficient and strong can get a really good lifting session from a squat snatch. Someone who is either inexperienced, very unathletic, deconditioned, uncoordinated, whatever, a squat snatch has an entirely different utility for that individual. It's still valuable for sure, but we also don't want that to be the only opportunity that an athlete gets in a week to go heavy, for example. So, a squat snatch, while absolutely useful and functional as we would define it in CrossFit, we definitely try to make sure that those get balanced with appropriate, like actual traditional lifts that allow even your less coordinated athletes to get that strength adaptation that we're after. But yeah, a little bit more frequency with the kind of going back and forth between snatching and cleaning. In a coming phase, we'll continue. We'll actually end up getting back to a heavy cleans as we get, again, kind of closer to the end of the affiliate training season.
Gymnastics emphasis. This follows a very similar pattern to the way that we bias things at the affiliate level. You have bar pulling, which is your pull-ups, chest to bar pull-ups, and bar muscle-ups / handstand push-ups. You will see all of them in a dose in the test. So you'll have a gymnastics test in week 1, and then essentially you're following this rotation of, are we working on them in a skill session alone? Are they popping up in a workout? And sometimes they're sort of mashed together. Sometimes they're separated. We actually had a conversation in our programming meeting about this, and I made my claim as to why I like the push and pull being involved. It's very often that your athletes, once they get the skills, are going to gravitate towards one side or the other. Sometimes people are just great at gymnastics and it is what it is, and we're not really worried about them. They're going to get a good workout. They're going to get a bunch of reps in, like thumbs up, pat on the back. I'm going to go help Bob over in the corner figure out how to do his pull-ups. But I like the fact that I get a really good stimulus out of the handstand push-up sessions, and then I get a lot of like practice time with the pulling gymnastics. That's what I like about it. So like if I were, again, to either not be good at either of those things or be great at both of them, I could see why someone would want them to be sort of spread out and individual. But when you have that push-pull, you get your like I'm looking at the test right now, and I would go from 8 kipping handstand push-ups, fantastic, 8 pull-ups, 5-minute AMRAP. We'll see how long those hold up. because I'm going to get on the wall. I'm going to be done in 2 seconds with those handstand push-ups, but then I got to go grab the pull-up bar again. And there's a nice push and pull, pun intended, a little too on the nose there, but like, I like that it works out that way. And I don't know what your opinion is on it from that standpoint, but like, how do you think about it from the coaching standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, to be the devil's advocate in that argument is that you're good at both of those things. You can do both of those things, handstand push-ups and all of the gymnastics. You can do chin over bar, chest to bar, bar muscle ups.
Sure, the capacity just if I'm breathing heavy, those go bye-bye.
Exactly, yeah. So I think my argument is more just from a coachability of the class standpoint.
Sure.
So if I'm going to introduce handstand push-ups and bar muscle ups in the same class, I'm hopeful I'm going to at least touch on both of them. Maybe I'll cater my teaching more to one than the other. Maybe it depends on the class, who's in the group, whatever. Or, if it's a pretty big spread, then I'm going to try to get both involved. So it's more of just a kind of like, hey, if we're trying to do everything, are we just doing nothing in the class? There are plenty of athletes
You do spread them out very well after that, though.
Yeah. So we just try to so it's more of, again, part of why we had the conversation and it's just like, do we do two things or one? But I think to just kind of like for affiliates that have been with us the whole year, or maybe, hey, you're wondering like, do these things roll from one phase to another? We went in our summer training phases, a heavy strict pulling and strict pushing bias. We did lots of bench pressing, lots of strict pressing, lots of strict pull-ups, even like ring rows or inverted rows. So very traditional strict pulling and pushing. We then started to mix in kipping pull-ups, no butterfly pull-ups, but the traditional gymnastics kip. Then we introduced the toes to bar, which is, I would say you're probably most accessible CrossFit kipping movement for a lot of folks. And so we've gradually increased the dynamic movement that we're asking for in these high skill gymnastics movements. Now, obviously, not every athlete is going to have progressed nicely from being able to do strict pull-ups and now I can magically do pull-ups and then toes to bar and now I can get my bar muscle up, but there is a deliberate kind of trend that happens throughout the training year when we're introducing these gymnastics movements. How well an athlete progresses depends predominantly on their consistency across the entire year, but there are these kind of built-in progressions made so that although we are biasing certain things, they build on each other across the year.
Yeah, and the last thing that I'll say about the gymnastics is sort of in place of the traditional, the like new school affiliate model where you have to hit a lift and a Metcon every single day to appease, the members are writing the programming kind of world. We have days where you will do, you could call it gymnastics practice, you could call it gymnastics skill session, you could call it gymnastics strength. It's got many different names, but you'll do the test, and then the following week you'll do something like 5 rounds, one big set of chest to bar pull-ups, rest 2 minutes. And that's a really, making a gray area between like, I'm going to teach you how to do a single thing all the way to super high intensity, developing that gray area for you to be able to sort of do both. We've got a little bit of intensity there. Once, the movement starts to break down, we are going to ask the athlete to stop and get a big amount of rest. But as a coach, it's really great to be able to take someone through that sort of rotation because you get a lot of opportunities to be like, I'm going to teach you how to do this. I'm going to monitor you specifically as you do a manageable set, and then we're going to throw you in the fire and see how it goes under intensity. Yeah.
And then for the athlete who has that capacity, it's a great opportunity to just continue to build it. And the coach, checks in with them, throughout the class, gives them any technical or, technical refinements, strategic sort of things and whatnot. But your fittest are able to build capacity. Your kind of intermediate RX athletes are able to really work on the movement, and your beginner athletes, maybe they need to be scaled back to something, maybe they are still doing strict gymnastics, strict pull-ups or dumbbell presses instead of handstand push-ups, but it's all obviously scalable for those athletes.
Once a week, you are going to have a cardio workout. And the easiest way to explain it, I think, in an elevator pitch, is essentially all of your members are going to move steadily through the entire workout. Now, the fun thing is we bounce back and forth between a more monostructural style workout. At the affiliate level, we're not super worried about like honing in on a specific machine. So we're allowed to sort of help you out with dealing with equipment issues. So, round 1 could be running, round 2 could be rowing, round 3 could be biking, etc. But you're going to have cardio days where it's very much like the athlete is going to, perform something at their own pace in a similar window to the person to the left or the right of them. And then we bounce over to a cardio day that's more CrossFit centric, but it's still going to, it makes me think of the team competition we have coming up. Like every single person in class can do burpee box jump overs at a certain height, or, jump rope, or do a wall ball, etc. So you'll bounce back and forth in phase 2 on your cardio day between traditional monostructural movements and then the actual CrossFit cardio days.
Yeah, and it's funny. I've been sending an email series out to our members on world-class fitness in 100 words, 100 words of fitness, and the one that I'm sending out today pertains to the part where it says basically run, row, bike, swim, hard and fast. So it's the training side. Practice and train the major lifts, master the basics of gymnastics, run, row, bike, swim, hard and fast. And I think that element, I'm trying to explain more broadly what kind of the intent of those words are, which in my view is the idea of intensity, right? So we have these highly accessible modalities, running, biking, rowing, to a certain obviously extent, swimming. But the idea here being that these are functional movements that they're obviously rowing is not a no skill thing, but we can get athletes to achieve a certain stimulus. We can manipulate a certain energy system very, very easily by giving, appropriate work to rest, appropriate instructions, or just writing the workout in such a way that guides athletes down the pace or the intensity that we're actually looking for. And when it's either just a monostructural day, like you said, or it's got some CrossFit movements mixed in, they're generally mixed in such a way that it doesn't detract from, whether the energy system we're targeting, the time domain we're targeting, the work to rest ratio that we want, whatever. Highly accessible to everybody, regardless of how it gets scaled or modified for you. You're still going to get a really good workout. For CrossFitters, it's not necessary, or for the athlete, it's not necessarily important whether they know that it's a CrossFit cardio day or a monostructural cardio day. It's just a fucking CrossFit workout. But the nuts and bolts from the programmers is hey, there's a reason that this week it's running, box jumps, and wall balls, and next week it's just shitty rowing intervals, and back and forth like that. But just such an easy way. That weekly cardio quote day is, I think, such an important part of the program, just because of what of how it has the ability to move the needle for the athletes in class at regardless of the level that they're at.
I also think you need those days in your program where everyone shows up and does essentially the same workout.
Yeah, it's usually the thing that gets scaled least across the week. And it's not because we want athletes going RX, but we try to write it hey, Susie and 20th fittest man in, the Northeast Division, that you can compete against each other in theory, and that's cool.
All right, tell me about Intensity Day. Looking through the program here, very clearly either a cardio stimulus or a gas stimulus. We're not going to leave you on an island with 600 handstand push-ups to do on Intensity Day. I would argue that at the affiliate level, the most intense workouts are the really well-written and cardio days. Because it's those moments of fuck, there really is nowhere for me to hide. Like
Yeah,
if I'm
I
doing this
agree.
workout right and I'm doing a single deadlift, a small set of handstand push-ups, and then I'm going for a 400-meter run, I'm going to run at a pace that allows me to come back in and get those other things done, which means it's going to hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, so every day is intensity day. That would be, it'd be a misnomer
Sure.
to say like this day is the exclusive day dedicated to intensity. And again, more of kind of like internal terminology that it's the intent here is one, it usually falls on a Friday after having messed with the rotation of what things fall on certain days. It seems to be pretty consistent that athletes in general, like it's like Monday and Friday are typically higher attendance. People want to get in after a weekend and they want to get it in before the weekend because that's just
So you can
kind
get
of how
people to
life
lift
works.
heavy and go hard every week.
Yeah,
you're
I mean,
saying?
not necessarily, but we're certainly gonna go hard. And again, it's intensity being relative. This is classic CrossFit. It's more say like, hey, it's one piece. You're probably not gonna see an intensity day where you do a lift and then a Metcon. It's almost back to the kind of OG CrossFit roots of the one workout per day. Go as, warm up really well. Let's practice the movements. Let's make sure that we're primed and ready to go, and then hit that one single piece as hard as you can, because ultimately, mix these elements in as many ways as creativity will allow, 5 or 6 days per week. And that's kind of the intent here, is that we want people going hard when they get into the gym. Remember that the effort that you put in at a single piece is worth way more than the amount of training that you cram into a single class or a single week. So, less, again, to your point, like there are plenty of cardio days that might feel more intense, quote unquote, than intensity day. But that's more often than not just because of the complexity of movements versus something that's a little bit simpler. But, again, I think it's more the mindset of like, hey, there's one thing in class today. First Friday workout is like, might be a 12-minute workout for some people, but holy fuck, if you do that workout in 12 minutes and you're not rolling around on the floor and like are incapacitated for 10 or 15 minutes, like you might not have done it right.
Yeah, I won't tell people what the workout is, but it's clean and jerks and burpee box jump overs. I don't think you really need to know.
I was pretty
else.
happy when I wrote that. I was like, this is going to fucking kill people.
Yep. All right. So one thing that we have in our programming that's, as an affiliate owner, kind of a funny thing that I think indirectly highlights the evolution of affiliates. So like early days, a significant portion of affiliates were like hobbyists, who were like, I love CrossFit, I want my own gym, and like not necessarily as much of like a place of business. And a very big gray area there. So one of the things that happened was like, okay, fine, I'll come in on Saturday for like an hour, or I'll find someone to come in on Saturday for an hour. And as the affiliates have progressed over the years, you can tell by looking at different websites that people have more offerings typically on the weekends than they used to. Members are just like, I'm not paying for this place so I can come 3 or 4 days a week. Right. But you're still probably not offering a ton of classes, which means you're probably going to get higher attendance in a specific class. So the classes that we write for Saturday are short, medium, and long, and they're couplets and they're triplets, and sometimes they're heavy, and et cetera. The things that we want them to be. They rotate within that way, but they are, from me looking at them, significantly easier for a coach to come in and say, I'm going to partner you 2 up, or I'm going to partner you 4 up onto a team. And now, 1 ski erg becomes 4 ski ergs, or something to that effect. So members kind of like it, from the standpoint of coming in and being able to do a partner or a team workout on Saturdays. Just a little bit of a trick for you guys. Interval training works really fucking well. And people don't know that that's
intensity also works really well.
Yeah. Intensity and interval training work really well. Those statements go together. So yes, you're like with your friend doing a partner workout, but more often than not, there aren't many elements of it that make it actually a partner workout. It's just interval work.
Yeah. I think, again, thinking back to old OG CrossFit, the concept of partner and team workouts was, is just a trick into getting people to go harder. I think if you've ever done a partner competition or something like that, how much harder you tend to go, whether it's because you want to win, you don't want to let your teammates down, maybe you're the weakest link on the team for that specific event. You're going to do everything you can to not be that person. There's a lot to be said about, it's the reason we do group classes. Lots of the workouts are individual workouts, but you're still competing, either competing against other people, or you're at the very least suffering alongside somebody else and are pushing harder than you would otherwise if you were just in a commercial gym doing the same workout by yourself. You'll never convince me that you're going to go harder on your own than you are in a group of 10 or 15 people taking a class. You double down on that by making a partner a team workout, and now it's like, okay, now I need to scale to make sure that I am not like overreaching on something that's going to detract from my teammates' workout. I need to scale to make sure that, the intensity stays high relative to my teammate. Maybe I need to, adjust my pace so that I don't get doom looped or doom loop one of my teammates. There's a lot of different, I'm not going to get too far into the strategy element here of partner and team workout, but it's more the fact that we can ask athletes to go hard. And again, like you said, they're just doing interval training, and a lot of times that turns into variable interval training too. When you're like, round one, I worked for 1 minute and got 1 minute of rest, but then round two, my fellow teammate really turned it on, and I only got 30 seconds of rest before, and I accidentally went too hard before that, and now I got to figure it out. And there's a lot to be said for that style of training, a little bit of unknowable element there. And then, I think that, again, the biggest point here is the potential for high intensity just due to that camaraderie, team, communal element of getting through a workout like that, and on a Saturday.
For sure. So the last piece here that we're going to cover is interesting to me because there's a member retention element to it. Just in terms of sometimes athletes want to go run a 5K or sign up for a bike race. Sometimes athletes want to sign up for a local competition. They want to see how far they can make it into quarterfinals, etc. And when you write a program for a gym that is 60-minute class across the board, you can oftentimes lose members to a gym who will, sort of let them, go into open gym and do whatever the hell they want all the time, or they're allowed to work, modify, but completely change workouts or do power cleans in the corner and drop the bar while the coach is talking, or they're doing bike sprints and you can't hear anything. When you deal with members trying to find that place where they're going to go use their fitness, whether it be within CrossFit competition or, again, your more monostructural pursuits, it's really hard to figure out what the programming should look like for somebody like that. And that's why we weave an engine class and a competitor extra into our programming for every single phase. So for most of your members, they're going to look at the program daily and they're going to get exactly what we just talked about. But you're going to have people who want more volume because they want to burn more calories or they want to be a competitor. And we have a competitor extra every single day that fits. We do a 90-minute class at our gym. I would say 60 to 70% of the time that competitor extra fits really well into the 90 minutes. And then sometimes we bury people on intensity day and then they don't want to do handstand walks. And we say, that's fine. Congratulations for doing that. But you have a competitor extra that's going to have metcons, monostructural, skill work, weightlifting, accessory work, zone 2 prescriptions, accessory, the lift carry hold that we do, with our competitors. All of that is built in there and it fits with the program. If you were to do all 3 pieces every single day, obviously you'd want to take rest days. Everything will fit. Everything will work.
Yeah.
So you could have this posted wherever. It could be, in the app that you use for your programming. It could be written on the whiteboard, whatever it is. And again, you could give people designated times when they can do it, or, hey, open gym is after class, I'm going to go get after it. But having that for your affiliate and using it and letting people know that it is there is a really great way for member retention. And if the open and quarterfinals culture is important to you, that's one way to help it.
Yeah, it's the way that it's put together, just a little peek behind the curtain, is that I prioritize the 1 hour class content, which is the strength or skill work, whether that's the heavy day, the gymnastic stuff, or part 1 of a part 2 class. The strength and skill and the conditioning, that kind of gets prioritized first, just understanding that's where the vast majority of athletes are going to live. That's what
Can't
is
serve
going
a
to get
shitty
coached.
steak with great mashed potatoes.
Yeah. Fuck. And then the competitor extra gets filled in after, and it's basically a question of like, what if I were an RX level athlete who was looking to improve their open placement, or has actually dialed in the other things outside of the gym. My nutrition's good, and it's like, okay, I do actually have the time, energy, and wherewithal to commit to a little bit more training. The competitor extra fills in what might be not even missing, but just not accounted for in that specific week of training, whether it's an extra lifting session, a gymnastics skill session with something that we're not necessarily focusing on in the phase. Maybe it is just some accessory work, some midline work, or on the rare occasion, it's an entirely extra conditioning piece, a Metcon. All of those things are in there and available. And I would say probably like the one thing that we don't write every week because it gets copied and pasted is the MF2 work or the Zone 2 work. And that's probably the most skipped over thing that athletes could do, when it's probably like, of the 6 competitor extra pieces per week, probably the single one that would move the needle most on athletes' overall health and fitness. Maybe it's a time availability thing. Maybe it's a buy-in thing. Maybe it's an education thing. I don't understand what the purpose of this is, sort of deal. But that becomes a coach's, that's a coach to athlete conversation. If we haven't convinced you of that yet. But the point is that the competitor extra does fill in the gaps, and it makes sure that you don't have athletes who come in and they kind of do the class workout at 60% because they want to pull some fucking hero workout off Instagram that they found and bury themselves with that as well. It's like, well, like, how do you know that fits well with the program? When it doesn't fit well with the program, people get overuse injuries. It's like, I did 78 clean and jerks yesterday. Can I do something different today? Athlete comes into my class and says that. I'm like, just come and take our fucking class. You don't know what you're doing. You pay me to know what I'm doing. Don't worry about that. Do 78 more clean and jerks.
Luckily, we have 100 CrossFit Games jerseys on our wall behind, so you can be like, I got you. I know.
Yeah.
I know how to help you. I promise. Stop.
Can help. Please allow me to.
And then the other piece I was alluding to, we have a 3-day-a-week engine program. So
yes, yeah.
The funny thing about we started the conversation with like, what should fast twitch guy do yes, we should know how to scale for them as coaches, but like the piece that you talked about, that Thursday Zone 2 piece, like when you have your rest day, if you're a fast twitch guy and you can't clear waist and you're always breathing too damn heavy to do anything, Zone 2 is fantastic. And then I've said it once, and I'll probably say it on every single affiliate programming podcast that we do, but the engine crew, the engine people at our gym are very annoying to me, because their energy systems are the opposite of mine, and it's bothersome. The people that go over and do Chris's engine class and his programming end up just being those people where you like see their row pace in a Metcon and you're like, the fuck is that? The person's a foot shorter than me and they're going 200 cals per hour faster. This makes no sense. It does make sense. They follow the engine program and they get better at doing the things that they weren't good at before. So, again, all of that to say, you've got a fantastic 6 days a week of like going in and just doing the classic stuff with the little elements of Misfit athletics that we bring into the picture so that people can really see their progress and, sort of stay invested in the progressions that we're doing. And then on top of that, if an athlete wants to be a competitor, if they want to get better at monostructural conditioning, they want to go do a race, etc., we've got all that stuff built in so it can stay under the umbrella of what you provide as an affiliate, which is incredibly valuable. So one thing that could be a conversation in Discord is just like, I like the idea of those two things. How do I actually incorporate them into my gym? We can give you guys some ideas for that, but I think they're really helpful, really useful, and also potentially a member retention tool.
Yeah, I think the program that Chris writes is excellent. He does a good job. It's a 3-day per week program that essentially hits your kind of short, medium, long time domains. There's always a phase focus, whether that's a specific machine or more a specific kind of energy system, or even in certain instances a specific modality. Like we'll go through a phase where the jump rope is a heavy focus for one of those 3 days per week. But it's a really good mix of monostructural machine work that's either interval based or just straight up effort. Day 3, what we run at our gym, the Sunday engine class that Chris coaches, is typically a more like Crossfit engine day. It's almost like the cardio. I would liken it to our cardio day in the standard program, where it's, there's machine running, there's other movements as well, but they're typically simpler. You're not going to see a complex barbell movement. You're not going to see high skilled gymnastics. Again, just really good opportunities for athletes to improve their energy systems. And like you said, maybe it's a member retention tool. These are meant to be 1-hour classes. So if you've got 3 time slots per week that you can afford to drop in an engine class, quote unquote, that's kind of what the intent of that was. But yeah, otherwise it's a great program, and it's given to you as part of the subscription to the regular programming.
So final thoughts. I'll do my variance spiel that I normally do. We just talked a lot about things that seemed ultra specific inside of a program that relies on variance. We have, again, 6 days a week of programming, and a lot of this stuff is popping up once a week. So couplets, triplets, chippers, short, medium, long, monostructural, heavy barbells, light barbells, small sets of toes to bar, large sets of you know what I mean? Like all of that stuff is built into this program, and is something that we know is kind of the magic of what makes all of this work. And we think that by sprinkling in, a gymnastics emphasis or a heavy lift bias, that we can keep members on top of and invested in the idea of one foot in front of the other. Like, I know how much I deadlift for a set of 3. I know how much I deadlift for a set of 2. Oh, wow, deadlifts has never felt this good in a Metcon before. That stuff is stretched out over weeks and weeks and weeks, but it's stuff that members can sort of like grab onto and remember. And again, I think that's also a retention tool. If it feels too random to your members, there are certain people with certain, types of personalities that's not really going to jive with. So I think it's a great tool, but like, if you really want to know what we're doing, we are relying on variance and using our, 50 years combined coaching experience to write it.
Yeah, I think my final thoughts would be along those lines, every once in a while you have the conversation, and if you're a coach, I'm sure you've had it. It's like, why don't we do long workouts more often? When's the last time we did a heavy push jerk or whatever? The first question that I always like to ask the athlete is, what's your consistency been like? Are you 2 days per week, 1 week? Are you 5 days per week the next week? Are you actually paying enough attention to the programming to know what the question you're asking? And obviously that's probably not the exact verbiage you use as a coach. It's more a question of, what does your consistency look like? Because if you're coming into the gym 4 to 6 days per week, 5 to 6 days per week, as the World Class Fitness in 100 Words says, you will eventually get exposure to every movement, every skill, every time domain, every stimulus that we want to develop well-rounded fitness. the way that we rotate the days each week. So you're not always going to deadlift on a Monday and then do gymnastics on a Tuesday or whatever. If the athlete, again, this is again goes to the member retention tool. It's like, hey, like if you want this program to work, there is a level of consistency that's required on your end to make it work as effectively as possible. And in those situations, even if the athlete misses a deadlift day, misses the weekly deadlift day or misses the weekly gymnastics day, if their consistency is sufficient, it's not going to matter because their overall fitness is going to improve, and maybe they won't reap the benefits on retest day. It's going to be a random fucking Wednesday in November when they're like, holy shit, like I didn't realize I could do kipping pull-ups or handstand push-ups, or I can't believe my deadlift got this much better. And it's those are tricky those are tricky lines to reconnect for the athlete, but it's like, hey, like your consistency over a long enough period of time is going to be the reason that you have that random Wednesday where everything comes together on a lift, or during retest when you haven't done a deadlift in a while that you randomly pull your heaviest deadlift ever because you have been consistent enough, you've been focusing on moving really well, and all of a sudden the stars aligned on that day, because that's just kind of how it works, especially in a training methodology that asks you to be proficient at so many different things. It's unrealistic to expect that they're always going to get better every single time that you do them. We need enough consistency behind that to make sure that that happens.
Very true. Head to the link in bio at Misfit Athletics to get signed up for training camp October 11th through the 13th, just outside of Philadelphia at CrossFit Raid. Monday, October 7th, Affiliate Games Week. Monday, October 14th, the very beginning of Phase 2. You can head to teammisfit.com or the SugarWad Marketplace to get signed up. And just one final plug, make sure you also join the Team Misfit Discord channel so that we can talk about this stuff. Yeah. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Later.